Welcome to the Digital Agency Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Englander. So today on the show, I'm very excited to welcome David Brecount. So David is CEO and co-founder of US Digital Partners, which helps marketing leaders drive new business momentum in their small and mid-market companies. He's been at this for more than 22 years, which is always a sort of person I love having on the podcast just for that sort of perspective, and especially because they've worked with more than 800 clients in that time. So David, welcome.
It's great to be here, Dan. It's good to see you again and get reconnected. So I'm excited to spend some time together.
Yeah, likewise. I'd love to go back to the beginning. And can you tell me a little bit about what led you to co-found the agency and what was going on in your life at that time?
Yeah, great. I was in the consulting world doing strategic consulting for a company based out of Chicago. This is going into the .com era. And coming out of that, and was helping companies like Sears Roebuck and Bank of America and other Fortune 100, Fortune 1000 companies determine what to do with the internet back in the day. This is in the late 90s, and how they could evolve. And whenever we would do come up with a new strategy, a new business idea, a new product to launch, we would always end up hiring agencies, and they would do all the cool work. When I was there, I thought, all this brand strategy and design, development, web stuff, this is what I really want to do. So when the economy went boink and the .com bubble burst and we were in a recession, and then 9/11 happens and all this, I ended up getting furloughed by that company, which gave me the opportunity to start US Digital Partners. And then maybe like 16 months later, they called me back and I said, "Hey guys, I got to do this. I got to keep doing this. I have started my own firm. I love it. One client at a time, one project at a time." And that was, coming up on our 23rd year. Just been hard at it in the web space since then.
Yeah, that's great. And there's so many questions and jumping off points. I think one is just when you look back at those 22 years, do you view the history of the agency in terms of certain milestones? And if so, like, how do you think about those milestones over the year?
Yeah, so definitely there's economic milestones, like the perseverance of getting the first clients and those first years under your belt and being able to pay yourself, and the growth, hitting $1 million in revenue and then $2 million in revenue and beyond and beyond. Those are milestones. And then, size of the company and the people were different milestones that became kind of less important over time. And then I would say the technology waves. So, when the smartphone gets introduced, that was going to change everything, and it did change everything. But everybody's saying, hey, everybody's going to have an app. You won't need a website. You won't need to do advertising. You won't need to do all this. It'll all come down to apps. Let's see, video, what's happened with video, the growth of social media, the different social media platforms coming and going. And now, of course, the AI revolution, which is very real and having a huge impact on our business as well. So just constantly, if you're going to be in this internet space, if you're going to be in marketing and advertising, you're going to have to figure out with your clients, what do these shifts in the economy mean for them, for yourself, everything. So those are probably milestones: financial, the economy, ups and downs, recessions, COVID, 2008, 2009, all those are definite milestones.
Right. And to kind of bring this to you personally, I guess, can you talk about how your role evolved through that in terms of the work that you were doing, in terms of the stuff that you found hardest on one hand and most fun on the other? How did that change over the years?
Yeah. So we basically, as my co-founder, who's now retired, said, we started off peddling websites for people. And, back in the day, people would say, oh, I don't know that I need a website in my business and all that. And that's kind of hard to imagine when the younger members of my team hear that, they're like, what do companies didn't want to be on the web? The phone book, what's that? All those things. Um, so it was all about websites and putting them on content management systems and getting people to do that. And then we got more and more into branding, kind of on the front end of things, helping companies developing their brand identity. Over time, we got into video productions, and that was really exciting, really fun. We taught ourselves how to do that. Sometimes we partner with third-party companies or freelancers to build those capabilities. Advertising was just really paid search and banner advertising early on, and then it evolves. That continues to be, programmatic is so fun now, and paid search is ever evolving, and social media is interesting, depending on your client mix. So we ended up doing more and more of that. And we evolved our agency from, just really websites to what's the strategy, what's the branding, what's the messaging, what's the website, web app, e-commerce that you're going to build, and then how are you going to drive traffic to it? So we call that all the execution stuff. So it's advertising, it's SEO, it's email marketing, it's content marketing, it's video productions, everything. So that's what we mean by, in our agency, our digital services are really strategy services, and then execution services. What are you going to build, and how are you going to use it to find more opportunities, clients, e-commerce sales, everything for whoever the client would be.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd love to talk about the who a little bit. And right now, my understanding is you guys are focusing on mid-market. How did that come to be, and how has the positioning changed, if at all, over the years?
So when you're new, you'll work with just about anybody, right? And I think it took us a long time. We still work with Fortune 500 companies. We work with Kroger, one of the biggest companies in the world, and we work with Gorilla Glue, another $1 billion brand. And we have a handful of $1 billion brands, but we came to find out that the kind of 10 million to 60, 70 million in revenue is really our sweet spot. That's when they need us most. They don't have all the inside the company capabilities. If they're much smaller than that, we certainly work with companies that are smaller than that, but it's harder for them to really see the value of marketing yet. They haven't. It's kind of that magic place of somebody hits $10 million in revenue and they want to go because they want to get to 15, they want to get to 20. If you're 20, you want to get to 40, all of that. And they realize that it's going to take a lot of marketing and sales efforts to do that. And we need to take this stuff very seriously. We realize that pure startups are not really our thing. There's a lot of negatives to that. And then we realize that the bigger the company, the more difficult sometimes they can be to manage and satisfy. So we had huge projects that we had to digest, and then you lose them. They move on, they do something else, and you think, oh my gosh, I just spent so much time and effort, focusing on these people. So we moved to more recurring revenue clients that wanted to work with us month in and month out, that we're helping move their business in that way. So that was a big shift because everybody wants to land the big fish and then be happy with the big fish. But I would add, Dan, that Cincinnati, Ohio is kind of a branding agency hub with Procter & Gamble and Kroger and other Fortune 500 brands. And agencies tend to land big projects, scale up, and then lose that project or client and then lay all these people off. So we have seen these agencies come and go and get big and get smaller.
Yeah.
And it's just so painful. The casualties are just endless. And so we didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like it was partially, where people were in terms of being able to afford you guys and also wanting to even out the business more and have enough of a client spread so that you're not having these giant roller coaster swings or whatever. That makes a lot of sense.
No
Yeah.
client
Yeah.
even is more than 5% of our budget. I think all clients right now are lower than are 5% of our revenue.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's lots of agency owners listening that have those north of 20% gorilla clients that would love to get to something like that. So this might be a good time to bounce over to Biz Dev. Can you talk about that a little bit? I always love to start with, again, back to the who. Like, can you talk about your Biz Dev team and process now, and maybe how that's changed over the years?
So I think we've always relied on doing great work and getting referrals and working with people over time. So I'll take even last month, March, we got something like 10 new projects. Only one of those was a new client, right? So 90% of that work is existing clients doing new things, helping them, expand and grow. And so that's a blessing, but it is harder to meet new people. It is harder to get those introductions. AI and everything is creating a ton of noise out there, and it's harder to break through. So a little bit, what we're trying to do is be smart. Like, we're using AI tools in all aspects of our business, and that's great. And we're learning from it. And we're helping some clients actually build out AI capabilities for analyzing their own business. But we're also at the same time kind of doubling down on being human,
Mhm.
with our own written content, telling our own stories, our own email marketing, our own blog posts written by real people, our own LinkedIn content produced by real people. So we're going after that. We are doing some outbound. We are doing some advertising. We're constantly testing these things because we learn a lot for our own clients. But yeah, it is ever evolving, and we're trying new things just to try and get conversations going with people.
Yeah.
But we're leaning more on being human than we are automated.
Yeah. I definitely want to get into AI and the approaches and stuff. I guess just can you talk a little bit about what are you hearing from your clients right now? There's a lot of stuff about uncertainty, trade war, all that sort of thing. Like, how with your mid-market clients, like, what are you experiencing from them? What is their outlook when you talk to them?
So I think people are surprisingly hopeful and resilient. It's been a terrible couple years for the economy. So we have clients across healthcare, manufacturing, nonprofit, government, services, tech, um, SaaS, everything. Nobody's absolutely killing it. And I think that everybody's encouraged, but they were more hopeful. They're uncertain what is going to happen with trade wars and the economy. And I think, quite frankly, that we're not used to austerity measures in the United States. Nobody is used to truly having to cut back spending or reduce the size of government or anything. So it's going to be quite painful. I think like the nonprofit sector, Lord only knows what's going to happen with those who rely on government funding for things. I think that's very much up in the air. I think, manufacturing, healthcare is healthcare. It's kind of, that could be impacted, some of the funding. TBD, the changes, if they ever address Medicare, Medicaid, that could be effective, or impact them. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think in times like this, it's great to be diverse. And there's again, a couple agencies in Cincinnati recently that have gone out of business completely. The conversation has always been, hey, should we niche down? And you can niche and grow, but you can also, that's not always diverse, and that can hurt your business as well. So yeah, it's pretty messy out there from our client base, and everybody's eager, wants to be doing better, but they're all thinking, okay, well, maybe late in 2025, early next year, well, that's what they said 2 years ago. That's what they said 1 year ago. So some fundamental things have changed.
Yeah, it's funny because it's on one hand, it's tough to ignore these trends and they're in your face all the time. But on the other hand, if I want to draw this straight line from whatever revenue I'm seeing in our business today to the inputs that caused it, it's almost always just a factor of pipeline and a factor of like my own activities and these and that sort of thing. Um, so I'm curious, how much do you run into that for yourselves? Like, how much of the ups and downs are you putting on your own sales and marketing experiments versus the macro stuff, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, I don't have a weighting. I think it's a combination of it is a terribly difficult economy right now. Like in 23 years, it's hard. It's hard to convince people to spend, to invest, especially over the past week. Like we're just observing a huge downturn, with this the tariffs going in and downturn in the stock market, and everybody's trying to factor this in. So I think that's having a huge impact. Your own tactics. That's a little bit of an ever-changing, ever-evolving thing. Should we be doing more ads? Should we be doing more content marketing, inbound, outbound, all of that? Well, what we have been saying to our clients is you really need to be doing all of it. Like you need to be experimenting with different types of advertising on different platforms. You need to be doing SEO well. You need to be optimizing for AI now as well too. And we have some tactics for that. And then, you need to be doing content marketing generation, and you need to be doing email marketing. All of these things need our cogs in the marketing machine, and you really need to have a plan and be executing against all of them.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was like doing some ChatGPT research the other day, and I was like Googling, or not Googling, it's just that's a habit now to say that, not recession-proof industries. And there were a lot that you'd expect, like discount retail and healthcare and utilities. Do you know what the surprising one was though?
No.
Education. Which is like, I found that weirdly inspiring because I'm like, yeah, you could look at it as just colleges and stuff, but I think it's bigger than that because I think people are looking for more guidance when things get murkier. So I think you could probably broad frame that to other forms of education, professional education, or as an agency, you're educating people to some degree, right? Even if you're doing things for clients, you're giving them a perspective.
Yeah.
Which I think is
I wonder if that has to do with, when recessions or difficult economic times happen, people do go back to school to retrain.
That's part of it, I think.
Some of it. And I think they decide, well, I'll go get a graduate degree, or, whatever I studied in college didn't help me get into the working world. I'm going to go in a different direction, or I'm going to train differently.
I think that that's the most direct cause for that stat for sure. But I also think that I see versions of that on a business level happen as well, where when things are down, even before all this stuff, we've had agencies tell us, oh, like back in 2020 was the same deal. It was the sort of like, what I used to do is not working anymore, so I need to learn something new. And I think we're seeing some of that effect. Yeah. I think, back to the AI angle, I guess what it feels like to me right now is there's a few factors behind this. The most recent and tangible factor is the trade war. That's the biggest one. But there's also this element of analysis paralysis, where if you're, a marketing leader in a large organization and you know that everything could change in the next year because of AI, it's tough to make these long-term investments because you're
Yeah.
like, might as well just wait and see what's going to happen. How much are you seeing that these days?
I'm actually not hearing that from our clients or prospects. I think they're um so th- I mean there's so much AI craziness going on and AI over promising, and I see another bubble, like what we went through in um 2001, 2002 with the internet bubble bursting and all that. The internet didn't go away. It just um good business models persevered and did well, and bad business models didn't.
Yeah.
And the easy money went away, and all of that. We're going to go through that again with AI. I mean, there's way too much easy money being thrown around. I think companies definitely want help figuring out, well, what should I do about this, or how's this changing the way our customers find people? All of that, and I think it's a continuation of what we've seen even before AI. Hey, people are doing a lot more research before they buy. Great. People are looking for trustworthy people to work with. Great. I happen to think AI's biggest impact is the service, like customer service areas first. None of us want to be on the phone with somebody trying to get our flight changed or doing all those horrible things, talking to your bank,
Yeah.
about something I want, and a really well-trained AI bot solving problems for me. I think those kinds of things are the first real opportunities. Everybody using Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, great. Keep using it. We want to use it. Is it replacing Google? Yes, to a certain degree. So but I'm not hearing our marketing leaders saying, hey, AI is going to dramatically change things, and we're going to put this off for a year. And I think the reason is most companies really struggle to just get up to parity with their thing. Like their brand isn't in great shape. Their messaging isn't in great shape. Their website isn't in great shape.
Yeah.
Their ads aren't doing it, or they tried it and they didn't have a good partner and it wasn't working well. They're not generating content. They're not producing video and writing. And so like they need help with that. They need help to just getting up to parity, to where um they could make a good impression on the people who are coming to their website or seeing their YouTube channel, etc. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny.
in that market.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, I have almost two minds about it, where on one hand, I completely agree with you. And I think we get overly excited about how fast this stuff can move and all the problems it can solve. On the other hand, I think that what's really hard about AI is wrapping your head around all the second and third order effects. Like when we got the internet, we couldn't envision anything like a TikTok, or like the fact that you'd be looking at it 12 hours a day. Like you couldn't even wrap your head around that. Right. And I think that a lot of the times the most immediate AI use cases are ones that are purely functional. Like, oh, I can do this thing faster, or I want to be able to do this thing, but it's not there yet, versus like using it as a new way to think entirely. Right. Which is, I think, the thing that we're slowly kind of grasping, but it takes a long time to come up.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. It does take a long time. I think what you can learn by just sitting there with ChatGPT teaching you how to do things is absolutely fascinating, and helping your teenage kids learn algebra again through ChatGPT. How did you do that? How did you solve that? Show me another example of that. It's incredible. And you can extrapolate that out and say, therefore, I don't need to go to school. Therefore, I don't need a teacher. I have ChatGPT. That's all all I'm saying is, like, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Everybody has said, you don't need a website anymore. We got Facebook. You don't need a website. It's all going to be apps. We don't need that. It's all going to be video. It's all going to be this. And it evolves and it changes, but it's never a total flip of everything. Like everybody said bookstores wouldn't exist back when Amazon was launching and all that. And granted, it is totally different, but Barnes and Noble somehow still exists, and all these little bookshops that people still exist, and it's changed things. But those people who were really good at that, really good at running a bookstore and having it be a niche community experience, boom, is great. Is everybody getting all the products that they want from Amazon delivered Prime? No. Are a lot of people doing it? Yeah. Are there problems? Yeah. Is there actually a counter pushback? Like I don't want to buy from Amazon. I want to buy from something else. So it's very interesting to see how all these things shake out.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if that's helpful.
It is. I actually think that in a way it brings us back to the AI email topic, right? Because I think that what's going to happen, or obviously already is happening, is that we're getting this rapid takeoff, but it just hits these bottlenecks, right? Like the water gets trapped in one particular area. And I think that one of the biggest bottlenecks in our world of like B2B sales, and if you're an agency owner trying to grow, this applies to you, is the fact that somebody's going to have to get on the phone with you to talk to you in order to buy, right? Like if somebody's investing more than roughly 4 figures, call it 5 in some places, that seems to me like there's such a cultural premium put on the trust involved in something like that no matter how much AI you have working for you, you're going to hit that bottleneck, right? And I think that a lot of the times the thing that we're working on with clients and people in our world is not taking the wrong lessons from the software industry and from transactional products and these sorts of things, where much bigger total addressable markets, much lower price products, much more tangible products versus like, hey, you want to give me $100,000 and maybe you'll have this outcome in 6 months? Different thing, right?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's interesting. So there's a temptation. We did this recently at USDP, had this conversation, and I'm not saying I have the right answer, but we were looking at agency competitors who do a great job of pricing out everything. Like, it's $995 for this, and it's $1,500 for this, and here's all the pricing stuff, right? Great. Like I want to be transparent about pricing. I also want to be realistic. But if I look at what we actually do with successful clients, they're not looking for a $1,500 one of these and a $750 one of those. They're looking for a trustworthy partner who helps them do the next right thing they need to do for marketing. That here's a roadmap. Here's what we're going to do. We may adjust the order of these things based on budget and priority and need and all these kind of factors. We're going to collaborate. Then we're going to get about executing on these things. And we all tend to want to be, to read into the SaaS model of, you get product A, product B, product C, and here's the pricing. And then enterprise, contact us for customized pricing for enterprise. And we want to pull that out and say, okay, therefore your agency needs to have these perfect little pricing things. I think you do need to talk about pricing more clearly. And I think people understand that, hey, you're asking us to build something custom. Your website may be small, medium, or large. And here's kind of what the large ones look like. And here's what the small ones look like. But if you extrapolate this out to construction, like home construction, there are companies that, here's your model home and you get this and that, but everybody wants to get out of that and wants to get into custom home. Like hey, let's talk about moving the rooms around differently or moving the bedrooms, or what happens if we have, Wolf appliances and heated tile, bathrooms and all these kind of things. Well, that changes things. That changes the custom nature, how long it takes and the materials and everything. So what we do is far more custom, than can be just, hey, you want a logo? Here's the cost of a logo, right? You want SEO? Here's the cost of SEO. No, the truth of the matter is marketing is damn hard. It takes relentless effort, week after week, month after month, year after year, to get out there and, work across so many different channels. It's never easy. There's no set it and forget it. And let's be real with people that this is going to be hard work, but you're going to look back 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, and you're going to think, whoa, I don't even recognize where we were versus where we are. Right. And that has happened for us time and time again. It's just very hard for people in these environments to kind of step off the edge and say, okay, I'm going to start month 1 with USDP and see how this goes.
There's so much I love about what you're saying. I think one marketing lesson that I think sometimes gets applied incorrectly, especially to skeptical markets, is always making the pain, effort, sacrifice smaller, right? That's involved. And I think there's a few different ways to think about it. The first is like, if you have a naive market, then making the pain, effort, sacrifice part of that offer helps out a lot because they don't know better. But that's not our market, right? If you have a seasoned marketing leader and you're promising them some big outcome and you shrink the pain, effort, sacrifice part of that too much, they're going to immediately be rightfully skeptical of that thing, right? So you have to keep it in parity with that. The other thing is, I also think it's underappreciated that there's plenty of products, services, beyond that. I think of like the Green Berets or the CIA. They don't have any shortage of recruits, but they would never say this is easy. So it's like, why is that? And it's because there's meaning involved in joining those organizations, right? So I think there's some version of that for agency services too, where you have this big outcome and you're selective about who you work with, but you're not diminishing that it's going to be hard for people. I think that reads as true to people. Yeah.
We try to say that. The analogy that I always say is this is a lot more like hard physical therapy than it is plastic surgery. And everybody in our modern society kind of wants to go into the plastic surgery and come out and it's fixed. And, the diet, exercise, discipline, rest, meal plans, it's hard. I went through this last year, had to have a skiing accident, tore up my shoulder, had to have my shoulder fixed. And I'm 10 months from that right now. 10 months out from that. And I'm doing push-ups again. And I'm, throwing the football and lifting weights, bench pressing, doing all that, curling, everything, which it was all, fixed. It was all new. But it took 10 months pretty much for me to be able to do that and to be back into a building phase and not just like, I need to leave my arm alone. But I did it. I did the hard PT and it works. Works really well.
Right. And PT is a great metaphor because a lot of that stuff is not sexy or fun. You're not bench pressing, it's just kind of the eating the vegetables version of working out.
Yeah, you're eating the vegetables. You're like, oh, these little exercises. Gee, I can, lift a 3-pound, but don't do anything too weird with it. Or you're stretching a lot of bands. You're pulling a lot of cords, and gradually it gets stronger. It gets better. It heals up. So that's my current metaphor. Just based on going through it. It takes time, and you can't believe it. Like, wow, that was 10 months ago. And I'm real grateful to the surgeon. He did a great job. And and the PT guy did an even better job, of setting my expectations and dialing me in when I'm like, yeah, can I start lifting? No, don't do that.
Right. And I like it kind of reminds me of, I wrote this post like, basically, is your agency a restaurant or a doctor's office? And I think there's a lot of strength to the doctor's office approach where it's like you would never have a doctor ranting and raving and pitching you things. They'd ask you questions, they're measured, they make a recommendation. If they can't do it, they find somebody that can and refer you to them, and so on and so forth. So I think there's something to that metaphor. So one thing I wanted to talk about is you guys started out, peddling websites, as you say. But it sounds like you've gotten to recurring revenue and retaining business. And what I tend to see is a lot of agencies will kind of like try to fit a square peg in a round hole. Like they'll try to pitch somebody a project, but sell it as a long-term retainer, and then it doesn't really work out. Can you talk about that a little bit? What's worked for you guys in terms of getting to this recurring revenue model from a website model and getting clients to retain longer and so on?
Well, we don't do, if somebody has a $50,000 or $100,000 project, we don't just start and say, oh, you can pay us $5,000 a month. I'm just not that trusting that we're going to front load and do all this work and I'm just magically going to get paid over and over again. So it has been, sometimes there are clients who are switching. They've worked with another agency for whatever reason. They got introduced to us. We talk about what they're doing. We talk about a better path forward and how we might be a better solution partner with them. And then we start working at like a retainer arrangement. Other times it's a meet them for the first time. They've got a branding project and a website redesign project that needs to be done. And then once all that work's done, you try to get on a rhythm of support. So we could be doing ads, we could be doing SEO, we could be writing content, helping them produce that, maintaining the website, video productions, putting that onto a recurring, that, monthly kind of retainer. That's an opportunity too. So I think that's where we've been. It did take an effort for us to say, well, we're not a plumbing service where you can just call us and, hey, there's something wrong and we need you to service this. We want to be actively doing marketing. I think it was the realization that, you're not doing digital marketing if you're just their partner who gets called when something's wrong.
Yeah.
There is no planning going on that's helping them do the therapy to become a better company, do a better job at marketing, get more leads. So it's painful. And sometimes there were customers who weren't willing to do that. They're like, no, we'll call you when we need you. Like, hey, that's great. We're glad we did good work, but we're not going to, if we're not doing marketing and sitting down and planning and our brains aren't actively on your business month in and month out, what are we doing? Like you should have put this on GoDaddy and done it yourself or gone to Wix or whatever, so we're definitely looking for the companies who are interested in hustling. Like we're going to produce content and we're going to get out there and we're going to produce video content. We're serious about digital marketing and we need help.
Yeah. I want to save enough time to talk about culture and the office stuff, but one last question on that. You kind of mentioned the word therapy multiple times. Is there any example that comes to mind, story, or even just a question or set of questions you've asked to go deeper with clients, and any interesting things that you found to unveil the things that you need to help them in that kind of therapeutic approach, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So I think the things that we kind of have talked about in this size and shape and industry area that we specialize in, we're not dealing typically with the, Anheuser-Busch and Tide and all these billion-dollar brands who are trying to, move on this innovation edge. Again, if their website isn't any good, if their brand is not communicating any well, there's an opportunity to improve that, right? And you can do that diagnostic with them or ahead of meeting with them. You can ask questions. Sometimes we'll do a free kind of audit to see what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they're producing, what the results are, to start the conversation. If there isn't an opportunity, great, keep on keeping on. Thanks very much. Great to know you. But we do ask the questions about what how are you spending money? What content are you producing? How are you communicating with your prospects? How are you filling your sales funnel? What are you doing at different levels of the funnel to stay in touch with people? And then we kind of back into, well, these guys have a great sales team and their website is pretty clear, but they're not really generating any new content. It's they're they're not generating any video content. There's people are out there looking for that kind of stuff. So I think, when you can almost do the analysis ahead of time to see, but if you can get some conversations to find out what they're doing and not doing from a digital marketing perspective, there may be good reason why they don't advertising doesn't work for them across whatever channels, or they've had some experience in the past, or we talked to a financial service investment firm recently, and I think that if you were to get into paid search advertising, I think the clicks are around $70.
That's wild.
Why would you do that? You wouldn't. You got to get a little bit more creative and say, okay, how do we reach people? How do we get brand impressions? How do we raise awareness without paying $70 a click?
Right.
It just isn't going to work anymore. And so we're also going through a painful transition in advertising of what works, what doesn't work, how are people being reached while they're not necessarily spending or look to spend, all of that. So I don't know if that's helpful background.
It is. Well, and I also think the fact that clicks are $70 and everything is downstream of this trust recession that we've talked a lot about, right? It's all more crowded and more noisy and so on. Yeah, and I think that kind of a subject change, I wish we had more time for that, is you guys have recently, maybe it's not a subject change, I'm not sure, but you guys have recently gone from an open office to a closed office. Can you talk about that a little bit and what was behind that?
Yeah, we were coming up on 12 years of being in the office we were in, and we're an in-office culture. Yes, some people work remotely sometimes, but we're pretty much 100% in office. People are coming here every day, and we really believe in the collaboration. But years ago, we worked with some architecture firms. They were all in on, the open space, getting people side by side, all the magic that can happen that. And I fundamentally thought it was a load of crap, the whole promise of it. And I, for one, have a hard time concentrating when people are making all kinds of noise and doing things, and have had a tendency to close the door of my office. So until we were 5 years into US Digital Partners, I never even had an office, a private office where I could close the door my entire career, and I was 40 years old by that time. So once I did, I kind of felt that my productivity went through the roof. And so I've always thought, gee, if I had it my way, I'd build an office that has private offices for everyone. So that's what we did. We moved to a place where everybody has a private office. There's still a common area, and they come out culturally to hang out and bring laptops out in the common area to hang out and be more social. And I'll probably do that today for a little bit. But everybody goes back and can close the door and have their private space, be more productive, be more collaborative, have the meetings, the video meetings. I think the explosion of video meetings necessitates it too, because people used to just book the little huddle rooms to go do their meetings. Now just do them in your office, right? And come out of your office to be a human being and collaborate with others. So
yeah,
we're 2.5 weeks into our new office. People are ecstatic. They're ecstatic.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It makes me sort of think about how these trends happen, and we all kind of like eat them hook, line, and sinker. Like the
Right.
open office thing, and then it was like, oh, now deep work came along. It's like, oh, now we have permission to do the thing that we kind of thought was working well for us, but then we stop it. How do you think this happens? This state of affairs?
Well, this is why, not that I want to be the old guy who, has been doing the internet since the beginning, but I try to be a little bit of a sober bucket of cold water on my team sometimes to say, you know, yes, we've seen this too. We've seen the promise of these things, let's stay the course. Let's, great. We're going to focus more on content marketing. Awesome. We're going to experiment with AI, but we're going to double down on being human too. Huh. Okay. Like you can almost forecast how this is going to go. Right.
Yeah.
And I think, as a culture, we're all a bunch of followers. Everybody thinks they're so original. They're not.
Yeah.
There's not a new idea under the sun, even though everybody thinks it's all new. I do believe that there's a lot of things that are better, faster, cheaper. The promise of AI is incredible. What's it going to help people do? A lot. Things better, faster, cheaper, right? Autonomous, driving cars. All right, better, faster, cheaper, hopefully fewer accidents, all that kind of stuff. So, not that there isn't innovation, there is. Not that there isn't 0 to 1, there is. But I sometimes people lose sight of the simple things of being real, telling clear messages, delivering great value for a great price, building trustworthiness, being honest when you screw up, tell a customer or an employee, hey, I'm sorry, we totally missed that. We're gonna make it up to you. We're gonna make this right. Humility. So, that's one of our core values is just, not taking yourself so seriously, not drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid, thinking you're great, but staying humble as an individual and as a company. So,
Yeah.
Innovation, a lot of people don't match innovation with humility, but really it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think that's a great topic for another episode is how these innovations are coming along and how you're thinking about them and so on. I guess with that, what do you find exciting over the next few months? What are you working on at USDP?
Well, we got some great client projects. We're helping them solve some really important issues all around this stuff, around communication. And I think that is sometimes the most satisfying, and it kind of ripples out from there when you meet a company and you just like you scratch your head. You're like, I've been in business for decades. I got a master's degree. I don't understand what you guys do. And they've managed to create something that's so unclear that and they don't realize it, and they don't know how to get out of that hole, and they don't know how to start moving in the right direction. So we have some new clients. We really are excited about helping them. And this is what we do in uncertain times when the economy is crazy and international relations and everything's turned upside down. Great. We're the people who help you through the storm. Stay steady. Don't panic. Have a clear idea of where you're going to go and what you're going to do. And really reliable people who are going to help execute on that all the time. So I'm encouraged by that. I think we keep lining up more clients that hopefully want that kind of a relationship, that trustworthiness. So I am hopeful. I'm more hopeful than I was the end of last year. I do think there's good reason to kind of get excited. And I do think these austerity measures and, getting technology solutions in government and solving some of this stuff that's just so archaic and bad spending and all of that is going to bear huge fruit. I do think, solving population growth problems, there's huge opportunity there. We need the workers. Are we going to be bringing more manufacturing back to the United States? That'd be awesome. How do we do that? So I'm very bullish on things longer term, but we got a lot of problems we got to solve around debt and government just doesn't operate like you and me. Like it's just this thing that exists for the benefit of all, and it's a mess, and we got to get our hands around it. So
yeah, definitely agree. That makes sense. David, where can people go to follow you and get in touch and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so David Brecount, the only one out on LinkedIn like that. People can look me up, of course, usdigitalpartners.com, but would love to connect with any other agency owners, business marketers, anything. It's great to build, authentic community and share lessons. So there's more than enough work to go around for everybody. So we don't try to be overly competitive.
Yeah.
We want to see all boats rise.
Yeah, it's the right attitude. David, thank you so much, man. Let's do it again.
Okay. Take care.
Yes, yeah.